Are all cops corrupt? No, but these 7 officers took their badge for granted and broke the law. From stealing drugs and money to participating in murders, these corrupt cops thought they were above the law until they got caught. Watch the shocking stories of the 7 corrupt cops that got caught. Number 1. William Demby. William Demby, a former Lorain County Sheriff's correctional officer, and Holly Demby appear to be your typical mixed family. They have a 4-year-old son and 3 children from Holly Demby's previous marriage. However, on August 11, following a furious altercation, Demby called the police and calmly told them he had nearly decapitated his wife. Demby assaulted his wife during the dispute, then helped her clean up downstairs before returning to his bedroom for a combat-style knife with a 7-inch blade. He stabbed her several times before she attempted to flee through a second-story bathroom window. Demby went downstairs after Holly jumped out of the window and stabbed her twice more. During the trial, his attorneys alleged that Holly had an adulterous affair with her husband and that she had been mentally torturing him for years before he snapped and killed her. Holly's mother, Cheryl Folds, admitted deleting any scientific evidence that proved her daughter's affair 10 days after her death. He was convicted guilty of murder, criminal assault, and domestic violence, and sentenced to life in prison for a total of 20 years. Number 2. Wayne Jenkins. Wayne Jenkins is a former Baltimore Police Department BPD Sergeant convicted of racketeering in 2018 for his role in a police corruption scandal. Jenkins and several other BPD officers were charged with robbing citizens, filing false reports, and making fraudulent overtime claims. The case received significant media attention and was seen as a major blow to the reputation of the BPD. According to court documents and media reports, Jenkins and the other officers would stop people on the street, often using the pretext of a traffic stop, and then steal money and other valuables from them. The officers would then file false police reports to cover up the thefts and make it appear as though the items had been seized during a legitimate investigation. In addition to these crimes, Jenkins and some other officers were also accused of claiming overtime pay for hours they did not work. This fraudulent overtime pay was known as ghost shifts. Jenkins and several other officers were indicted in 2017 and went to trial in 2018. Jenkins was found guilty on all counts and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Number 3. Donald Solomon. Mr. Donald Solomon. After a decade as a part-time officer, Donald Solomon was appointed police chief of the borough of East Washington in Pennsylvania in 2009. Solomon and his wife divorced around that time after more than 15 years of marriage. Following this, his behavior drew the notice of federal officials, who hired an anonymous, confidential informant described by Solomon as an erstwhile acquaintance to investigate Solomon's criminal tendencies. The confidential informant met with Solomon on June 30th and July 1st, 2011 to discuss providing security services for an unidentified third party. They proposed providing security for a 4-kilogram cocaine sale in exchange for $500 per kilogram. Solomon and the confidential informant met with a third individual, Joseph, who was an undercover FBI agent masquerading as a narcotics trafficker on July 27, 2011. Solomon volunteered to offer protection for a multi-kilogram cocaine consignment during the meeting and promised to wear his police uniform and sit in his police car while doing so. The cocaine exchange was staged in the parking lot of an East Washington charge. Solomon sat inside his marked police cruiser with the CI armed with a shotgun, an AR-15 rifle, and a 9mm handgun. Solomon called Joseph on September 14, 2011 and volunteered to offer protection for a 10-kilogram cocaine shipment on September 26 or 27 while dressed in his police uniform. Soon, Joseph and another undercover agent staged another phony drug exchange as Solomon stood by in his police cruiser. Solomon was paid $8,800 in connection with the cocaine transactions. Solomon was charged with extortion on 3 counts. He pled guilty to 3 counts of extortion in January 2013 and was sentenced in June of that year to a minimum of 11 years, 3 months, and a maximum of 14 years in jail. A federal judge reduced his prison sentence in 2017 after recognizing that Solomon went above and beyond ordinary measures while in prison to get his life back on track. Number 4. Michael Dotro. Michael Dotro was a police officer who vowed to uphold the law but completely soiled it in his spiteful machinations. After After his 11th excessive force complaint, Dotro was furious with his then captain Mark Underko, who shifted his shift and ordered him to attend a fitness for duty evaluation with a psychologist. As a result, in May 2013, he planned to set fire to Underko's house while his family was sleeping inside. He also cyberbullied a police officer, slashed her tires, and fraudulently accessed the department's computer database on the event. Dotro was also accused of purchasing and concealing marijuana and paraphernalia in his police bag and forbidden weapons, such as a blackjack and brass knuckles. Dotro has had 40 guilty municipal court convictions in total, 18 of which occurred before becoming a police officer and the remaining 22 while he was a police officer, according to Judge Jimenez, who added that the convictions do not include the 5 additional Superior Court convictions for which he was sentenced. Dotro was found guilty and sentenced to 20 years in prison for attempted murder, a first-degree crime, and 10 years in prison for aggravated arson for starting the fire at Underko's residence on May 23, 2013. The sentences will be served concurrently. Dotro was also sentenced to 10 years for official misconduct, 5 years for conspiracy to tamper with a witness, and 18 months for conspiracy to retaliate. He will be subject to 5 years of parole supervision when he is released. Jimenez also prohibited Dotro from contacting the Underko family or another victim. Number 5. John Kachkowski and Marco Marino. Marco Marino was an FBI agent who arrived in the United States at 12 years old with no money and no place to live. He became a citizen of the United States in 2007. Despite a difficult background, he overcame many difficulties throughout his life and remained out of trouble. When asked why he became a cop, Marino replied, "To help and give back to my community." His parents raised John Kachkowski in Venezuela until he was 7, when they migrated to the United States when the climate in Venezuela began to deteriorate. His father was likewise a citizen of the United States. He desired a career in law enforcement because he believed it suited his nature and that he was born to do it. His ambition was to work in narcotics, burglary, or robbery departments. Despite their enthusiasm for employment, they were caught trafficking fentanyl, a powerful synthetic opioid painkiller 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine. Marino, 45, collaborated with Kachkowski, 33, to trade the fatal substance. Marino attempted to enlist the help of a confidential informant to traffic drugs with him. He promised the individual police enforcement protection and said he would intercede if other law enforcement agencies attempted to investigate the confidential informant. Marino collected $44,000 in cash in March, April, May, August, and September 2021 in exchange for ensuring the safe transit of at least 27 kilograms of cocaine. Marino had no idea there was no cocaine, and federal authorities monitored each transaction. During the putative cocaine's journey, Kachkowski allegedly made himself available by radio to make any calls that Marino might require, including calls to other police enforcement authorities to ensure the safe transportation of the cocaine. Marino allegedly distributed roughly 7.5 kilograms of fentanyl supplied by Kachkowski between June and August 2021. A cooperating witness recognized Kachkowski as someone who had previously been an informant for the narcotics officer, and the connection had evolved into one in which the witness was trafficking drugs. The witness claimed Kachkowski used a Mickey Mouse marking on kilograms of cocaine when they gave them to him. The same marking is seen on at least 4 of the 7.5 kilograms Marino gave the informant. John Kachkowski, 33, pleaded guilty and agreed to surrender cash, 21 weapons, a 2016 Cadillac Escalade, a 2021 Chevrolet Corvette, and a $500,000 money judgment. Marino pled guilty to drug conspiracy and bribery charges in March. He is still awaiting sentencing. He faces a maximum penalty of 10 years in jail for bribery and a minimum of 10 years to life for fentanyl distribution. Number 6. Arthur Sis. Sis Arthur. During the majority of his 4 years as a Memphis cop, Arthur Sis supported his dream of becoming a record producer by taking significant quantities of money and drugs from dealers whose reward was not getting arrested. Arthur Sis worked as a cop in Memphis. He grew up in Orange Mound, then joined the Navy before becoming a Memphis police officer on July 19, 2001. He was fired in January 2005 following the filing of state robbery charges, but he continued the shakedowns by ordering former colleagues still on the police to make the stops. The conspiracy also included 3 other Memphis police officers, Antoine Owens, Andrew Hunt, and Alexander Johnson, as well as other colleagues and relatives of Sis. His primary purpose was to live the high life, Parker explained. He aspired to be a rap record producer, and High Life Incorporated was going to be the name of his record label. He wanted to raise money for his rap rap label, so he recruited drug dealers to arrange up narcotics deals, which he and other officers subsequently robbed. According to the prosecutor, after accepting narcotics, money, and cell phones from the dealers, he would assure them today is your fortunate day and that he would not arrest them. The main co-conspirator was Sis. The convictions of Sis are based on 14 separate occurrences. The occurrences all follow the same basic structure. Sis would set up a drug buy or sell using drugs taken in a previous incident with a non-officer contact acting as the middleman. During the transaction, either Sis or one of his fellow co-conspirator cops would arrive at the location to make a bogus arrest and confiscate the money and drugs involved. The participants would then be released, and Sis and his associates would share the profits without disclosing the details of the incidents. Sis arranged for his cousin to set up a narcotics trade with Dejuan Nard Brooks in November or December 2003. Sis watched the transaction in an unmarked police car, dressed in civilian clothes, acting outside his authorized beat. When Brooks's SUV approached Sis's cousin's vehicle, Sis radioed for Owens to arrive in uniform in a patrol car. Owens approached the two automobiles with his handgun pulled and took Brooks and Sis's cousin from their vehicles. Under Sis's orders to make it look real, Owens beat up Sis's cousin and threw him in the back of the patrol car. Meanwhile, Sis inspected Brooks's SUV and discovered a bag containing a half kilogram of cocaine, which he put in the front seat of his unmarked vehicle. Owens also took $11,000 from Brooks before releasing him without arrest. Sis's cousin was released from Owens' patrol car after Brooks left, and the drugs were dropped off at a South Memphis house, and they were later used to set up another drug sale. The $11,000 cash was divided among Owens, Sis, and Officer Johnson. After numerous dealers ultimately reported to the police, a months-long investigation was launched, culminating in Sis's arrest in an April 2006 sting. Sis's 44 charges of civil rights, narcotics, robbery, and gun offenses resulted in one of the worst sentences ever imposed for civil rights and other infractions that did not result in death. In Memphis, Tennessee, Chief Judge John P. McKella sentenced him to life in prison plus 255 years.